Chapter 22. Matt checked his mail on the way in from the park, then went in his home office to take care of a few things while the others split up. It took him a little over half an hour to deal with his messages and the business that couldn't be put off. Then he went in the living room to check on his guests. In the living room, he found Steve and Bobby watching TV. He assumed Nick was still in the bedroom with Rebecca. Where are the girls? He looked in the kitchen for them. They went outside a little bit ago, Bobby said, his eyes still on the TV. To the backyard? I think so. Matt stepped out on the back porch and looked at both women for a second, then met JV's gaze. Can I talk to her a minute? His gaze flickered to Alex's back. JV glanced at Alex, then looked back at him. Sure. She stepped past him on her way inside. Give Happy a chance. Please. She whispered into his mind. I'm trying, he said back the same way. He waited until his sister had closed the door before turning to Alex. Why don't we have a seat? They sat in the pair of metal rockers facing the yard. You feel it too, don't you? This pull between us? He found it hard to look her in the face, and instead looked out at the yard. He shook his head and laughed at himself. I already know the answer to that after last night. I do. There was no hesitation in her voice. You know what it is, don't you? I do. I've known from the beginning, but I didn't know you felt it too until last night. Matt couldn't help the wry half-smile that formed on his lips. Yeah, that's when I figured out it wasn't just me too. So what now, she asked. Well, now we have a choice. Do we want to see if this goes anywhere, or is it not something we want to pursue? I don't know about you, but it's something that's dominated my thoughts most of the last 24 hours. I'm not saying it's my choice. He felt her eyes on him. But what if we decide to see where it goes? Then we spend time with each other. See if we even like each other, go out, that sort of thing. She stared down at her hands for several seconds. What about the distance? He heard her take a deep breath. My dad's sick and I don't know if I can just up and move, especially so far away right now. Don't worry about that yet. We can work it out later. If things go well between us. Alex nodded but didn't look convinced. It dawned on Matt that he didn't know much about her. He knew nothing about her family or what she did for a living. All he really knew was that she was a trusted friend of his sister's and a shifter. Tell me more about your family. Is JV not able to help your dad? My dad's not Kitsune. She's done what she can, but that's only so much. Ah. Matt knew that JV's healing talent only worked on shifters. She wouldn't be able to help a normal human. I mean, he knows about us, of course. He and my mom are mated. He's got a heart problem. He could live another 30 years, or he could drop dead tomorrow. She shrugged. We have no way of knowing which. I get why you'd be reluctant to leave. I've just realized how little I know about you. What do you do? I mean, are you in school? What kind of work do you do? Well, she hesitated. That's the other part of why I'm reluctant to leave. I waitress part-time at a local diner when I can, but I mostly help Dad with the ranch. It's not a big operation, but it's ours. I see. Matt nodded slowly, thinking. What do you do? Alex asked. Somehow it's never come up. She shot him a shy smile. He looked at her, a little surprised no one had told her. I'm a professional interpreter. A lot of what I do is on the internet or over the phone. Occasionally, I travel for a job, but most of the time I work from here. You work from home? Her eyes were wide with surprise. I do about 98% of the time. Would it hurt your career to move out of the area? He thought for a moment. I don't see why it would. He shrugged one shoulder. I have an established reputation, and at least half of my regular clients aren't local anyway. Alex's entire face lit. So we might be able to make this work after all? We might, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I've heard of people who were potential mates that ended up hating each other. Let's give it some time, do a little courting, and see how things go. All right. She nodded. We can do that. They sat for a few minutes in comfortable silence, just enjoying the fresh scent of the green oasis in front of them, before his phone rang. Standing, he dug it from his pocket. He glanced at the screen. This is Rebecca's family. I've got to take it. You want me to go inside? No, you can stay. He slid his thumb across the screen and lifted the phone to his ear. Hello? He listened for a few seconds. Yes, we're willing to have another meeting, and it can be at a different location, but no, it won't be anywhere more private. He paused and paced out into the yard and back, listening. I'm sorry you feel that way. We're still not going to meet anywhere more private. Grimacing, Matt pulled the phone several inches away from his ear, as Rebecca's father screamed on the other end. When the yelling stopped, Matt put the phone back to his ear. Well, sir, you're welcome to call my con with your complaints, but I don't think you'll get the response you're hoping for. He paused again. Yes, sir, I'll wait for that call. Hanging up the phone, he slipped it back into his pocket. He's unhappy, I take it? Yeah. He wants us to go to their hotel room and didn't like it when I said no. Said he'd call my clan leader and get him to make us do things his way. After all, he'd done it our way this morning. He seemed to think that meant it was his turn to get his way. You think there's any chance your con will see things his way? No. Matt gave her a knowing smile. When I went and got his permission to do this in our territory, I told him about Rebecca having been on the run from him and being afraid of her father. It didn't go over well with him. On top of that, our clan has no ties to theirs, I made sure of that. Unless they find something to hold over his head, and I don't see that happening, he's basically going to tell them to go piss up a rope. Though I'm sure he'll be more tactful than that. Alex laughed. Go piss up a rope, huh? Matt grinned. Hey, I was raised in Texas, what do you expect? Alex just shook her head and laughed. So? He looked at her for a moment. We gonna give this thing between us a go? Yeah. She looked at him. I think we are. Good. He looked at the door, wondering if maybe they should go back in. You should know, Alex hesitated. What? He felt his brow furrowing as he waited for her to finish. I asked JV about your wife. She looked away. I wanted to know but didn't want to upset you by asking you about her. He could see how uncomfortable she was, and he felt for her. He knew it had to be hard for her to admit having gone to someone else with personal questions. It's okay, Alex. You can talk to her, or you can ask me. I miss her, and yes, there's still an ache when I think about her. I think there always will be. But I need to live my life, not spend it mourning what could have been, or what I've lost. He sat on his heels in front of her, bringing him down to her eye level. Don't be afraid to ask me whatever you want. I just didn't want to hurt you by asking. To stir up things that might be better left alone. She had been looking at the floor and slowly lifted her gaze. I get it. I'm not upset. I just want you to know you can ask me if you want. He held out one hand, palm up. She looked at him a second, then put her hand in his. A jolt went through him, and he looked at her for just a second before standing, pulling her to her feet with him. "You smell good," he said against her hair, and he stood close for a few seconds. "Come on, let's go inside before someone comes out looking for us." "You mean JV?" "Yeah, she's nosy like that."